Okay, so I know that we did just do the first part of Leviathan, but I think at this stage we might put that off to the side a little bit. Mostly just wanted to do that part in the research lab because that is something that, I mean, doesn't involve any combat at all, so really you could do that as early as you'd like. But in terms of the whole exploring the galaxy to find Garneau, I like to leave that in the background a little bit. That way, if you don't get the perfect search and you happen to just be doing other random exploration around the galaxy, you might happen across that location. It just feels like a more natural fit when you're doing other exploration. But as for right now, we have a fair bit of money to spare here and could potentially purchase a new weapon. There was, of course, a sniper rifle that we were eyeing in particular because that is the one weapon type that we really just don't have a great option for yet. So that is a little tempting. However, I think we actually may not need to be too aggressive on the sniper rifle stuffs at the moment in terms of buying a new sniper rifle for reasons. Okay, don't worry about it. Reasons. So if we're looking at specifically upgrades in that case, we can do pistol ultralight, which actually we got the first one from the lab in the first section of the Leviathan DLC. So I don't believe this was available until we did that. This might be brand new. Maybe it was here before, but if so, we just didn't really place high priority on it because, yes, we are using pistols, but for the most part, pistols are so light that it's not a huge deal to lower the weight on it, and we'd rather have some other things on them instead. But Shotgun Shredder mod is pretty good. Being able to get more armor piercing is pretty nice. So we may want to go that route. There are still some nice weapons here. The Vigor Carbine is extremely powerful, but it is pretty close range. Pretty cheap, though, so if you're looking for an affordable, good shotgun, this could be the answer for you. It's a little bit gimmicky, and it is short range, like I said, so it's not all-purpose, but it is still quite solid. Then, what if we do go for the Shotgun Shredder mod here? I'm not opposed to purchasing the Cost Fabrication Greaves either. I think our current Greaves give us additional health, but shields are quite nice since those generally respawn more quickly than health does, more easily than health does, since they'll respawn automatically, whereas health, you may need a metagel to make that happen. So, prioritize... I mean, we're probably going to need both these. Guess it doesn't really matter what order we go in. Okay. So, a few pickups there. Then, here... anything of interest? We believe that a peaceful heart is a strong heart. Lots of fish. Lots and lots of fish. It's not really of interest. I'm not 100% sure if we'll use those greaves, but that's the one thing that I would potentially consider swapping out for what we currently have. Pretty much just looking for survivability there in some way, shape, or form. So again, do you prioritize health or do you prioritize shields? It's pretty similar, but I think shields, since they do come back more easily, is probably what we'd go with, given the choice, if I remember to switch those over. Let's look for other stuff, though, that we might want to purchase in terms of weapon upgrades, since I think we actually do feel okay about spending most of our monies here. Indra is actually a pretty solid weapon, but pistol magazine upgrade, probably not necessary. Melee stunner, probably not necessary. Piercing mod for the pistol... No, we're definitely not using it ourselves. I'm just trying to think of if we have any squad mates we have using this right now. I don't think so, because the Acolyte cannot even use this at all. It can't pierce because it shoots a projectile. Same with the Scorpion, which is also something that we are generally having squad mates use. If you're using the Arc Pistol, this could be really good. Arc Pistol is really good at shooting through cover, but probably not needed in this case for us, since we aren't relying on that all that much. Stability damper for the assault rifle was something we were considering getting, but I think we may have better alternatives for Garrus and others who are using the Typhoon. Possibly both. These were both things we were considering for that, since it does have a fair bit of recoil, and it does shoot faster the longer you're holding it, and so having a larger clip size means you have more time which you're firing it at full speed and dealing full damage. But I still think we were saying we preferred some other stuff. Anything here that looks enticing? I don't think so. Again, there are some good things there. Like, the Indra is a solid weapon, just not a great fit for us. SMG ultralight, overkill. High caliber barrel for the SMG, though, could be worth doing. Just pure damage is almost never a bad thing. For the Hurricane, we do generally like to do some things to increase the stability and make it so that it doesn't blow through ammo quite as quickly, so we may not use this on the Hurricane, but for squad mates, it could still be a solid option. Yeah, so here's another example of the cranial trauma system for the pistol. The extra headshot damage, which we got the first one in the lab for Leviathan, the first component. And I don't think it was available here before. Pretty sure that it just does not exist here until you do the Leviathan DLC. Either that or we just completely ignored it because it wasn't something that we were focusing on doing, and so yes, we could have gotten the first round here even before doing Leviathan. I'm not entirely sure, I guess, but it, I think, may still be worth us picking up the high caliber barrel here. That could be something we use ourselves, or very well could put, at the very least, on a squad mate. The cranial trauma system, we definitely won't use for ourselves, and probably not for squad mates either, because, again, when we're talking about projectiles, like the Acolyte projectile, like the Scorpion projectile, they cannot pierce, and they cannot get headshots. So, for that reason, the piercing mods and the headshot mods, not the best idea. For those, SMG Power Magnifier, you could potentially make a case for it. Again, for the SMG, specifically the Hurricane at least, we are pretty hard-pressed to use other equipment slots or other mods on that, because there's just so many things that are useful for it. So squeezing in the Power Magnifier on it is pretty tough. I don't think that's ever going to end up happening. Scopes, we have heatsinks for the SMG. That is one of the things that we were saying we would like on the Hurricane. The one counter-argument that we are making recently was that if it's mostly a secondary weapon, and we aren't firing it all that much, then maybe that's not necessary. Because if it's a primary weapon, if the Hurricane is the thing that you're firing all the time, then you're definitely going to want this. And it can be an amazing weapon if that is what you're going for. But if we're just doing it in little spurts, this may be overkill, and we may actually prefer to do something like pure damage with the barrel mod, or maybe power amplifier. Pistol high caliber barrel, though, definitely something we're interested in, because that is one of the few things that does work when combined with the Acolyte. Piercing with the SMG, again, just kind of hard to justify. Ultralight for weapon types that only squad mates are going to use, not relevant, because weight does not matter for squad mates. So, I mean, we have still a lot of money here. So I'd say, why not? We'll take the SMG heatsink, and we will continue to ask ourselves as to whether we'd like to use that or not. And this spot, I thought I remembered, has a bunch of assault rifle stuff. Potentially the types of mods that could be very useful for people like Garrus. Sniper rifle piercing, I do like it. I do like it for squad mates. I think it's usually one of our go-tos, as well as the extended barrel. I think those tend to be the two that we put on. Shields again for the shoulder guard. Again, the question of, do you prefer health or do you prefer shields on this spot? And I may prefer shields, so if I remember to do it, that may be worth doing. This is the other one that we might consider putting on sniper rifles. It increases damage and increases penetration, but it increases weight. Does it not? Yeah, increases weapon weight by 50, which is a lot. That's actually very significant, but again, because weight does not matter for squad mates, put this on Garrus, no big deal. So it gives you the plus side of the extended barrel, the extra percentage damage, and it gives you the extra piercing of the piercing mod. So it's the best of both worlds there, the combination of the two things that we would normally put on. The downside is just the weight, but because the downside isn't relevant for squad mates because they don't care about weapon weight, it's great for squad mates. The only question would be if this is just level 1, is that still sufficiently powerful to be worth using over one of the more highly upgraded extended barrels or piercing mods? It probably still is. Probably still is. So there you have it. That's a ton. I mean a ton of weapon upgrades. And we still have a pretty decent amount of monies here. And the Venom shotgun, I think I was talking about it before, it is a fantastic shotgun. One that we obviously have not used yet, but it is quite different. It is basically, if you think about the Scorpion, remember, which is the pistol that shoots the little explosive projectiles that stick to enemies, and then after a short delay will blow up. The Venom is basically the shotgun version of that. It's bigger, deals more damage, and rather than... Does it actually stick to enemies? I don't think it sticks to enemies. It kind of gets tossed out with a little bit like a grenade trajectory. And then if you just shoot it without charging it, it shoots a single one of those. And when it finishes bouncing, or if it hits an enemy directly, it'll explode. Or if you charge it up fully and fire it, it'll actually shoot multiple of those, and then they will all explode when they're either done bouncing or they hit the target directly. And so this is really solid damage if you hit enemies with it. So the aiming is a little bit tough. But perhaps most significantly, amazing for staggering enemies, because all those explosions can knock people back and potentially knock multiple people back if you're lucky, because it does have a little bit of an AoE to it. So it's perhaps a little more situational. I would say probably on higher difficulties it may be more relevant, because if you are getting swarmed by people, you're not going to last very long on higher difficulties. You're going to go down very quickly, and so being able to knock them away is really useful. Whereas on the lower difficulties, where having just a pure damage weapon to blast people in the face if they get right on top of you, and because they have less HP on lower difficulties, means you can probably just get rid of them altogether with a shot or two, may make the Venom a little less relevant, but I mean, it's still a really strong weapon. So part of me feels like we might as well pick it up because we have the money to make it happen. So I think we do that. I'm not actually sure how often we're going to have squad mates use this. We are definitely not going to use it ourselves because it is heavy. But it's powerful enough that I think it's at least worth purchasing it so that we have it as an option. If there are situations in which we feel like that may be preferable to, say, the Crusader, which is actually, that's a pretty good combo. Crusader is very range-oriented. It's sort of a hybrid sniper shotgun, whereas the Venom is definitely doesn't have that range, but is much better, or much more specialized at close range, staggering people, as we were saying, and still deals a big chunk of damage. So you have those two shotguns. You have what is pretty much a shotgun for any situation, depending on what mission you need to go into. Let's actually, while we're on our spending spree, let's also go to the docks holding area. Does have at least one, if not two, shops. So why don't we pay a quick visit there? Okay, so let us take a look over here. This is one of the shops. We have the Kishok Harpoon Gun, which is a sniper. It's a very gimmicky sniper. Powerful, yes, but hard to use, and definitely not something we're going to use ourselves, and I am not sure if squad mates can make this work at all. So, probably not what we're looking to do. The Assault Rifle Piercing mod is potentially very much of interest. So, I think that's worth using for, or at least having as an option for people who are using the Typhoon. Smart Choke for shotguns, arguably the best shotgun mod, increasing the accuracy for it, because usually with the shotgun pellets spreading means that your damage for the shotgun is largely based on how many of those pellets hit your target. If you're close range, then there's less spread, or at least less time and distance for the pellets to get spread, and so generally your damage is much better. But if you reduce the spread all the time by increasing the accuracy, then by extension that means more pellets hit, and you're dealing more damage from both close range and potentially long range as well. So that is really nice. Really nice. Not necessary on the Crusader is the one thing I would say, is the Crusader is already more or less pinpoint accuracy, so if that is your go-to shotgun, then not really needed. But if you have other shotguns that you are using other than the Crusader, then it is amazing. Then the blade attachments for the melee damage, probably not. High caliber barrel, just solid, well-rounded, always useful. 20% damage, we'll definitely take it. Similar assault rifle extended barrel here, we still have the monies to make it happen. No longer enough monies for Terminus armor, but I think that's fine. Shotgun Shredder mod, I think we were purchasing one of these in one of the other shops as well. It's, again, piercing is one of the other things that we really like, especially against bosses. Then, don't think we're looking for any of those things. So, more really sweet upgrades here. Things that, of course, have been there before. We just were prioritized getting the base weapons above getting the upgrades. But now that we have most of the base weapons that we're looking for, it is perhaps a fitting time to start going on this weapon upgrade spending spree. So are there any more shops over here, or is that the only one? I think it is the only one. That guy looks a lot like Garrus for a second. Very similar color armor. Okay, Darner Vosk is of course there for a specific quest that we are not particularly interested in doing right now. We're going to save that one. Anything new from these two?
I'm waiting.
That's the beginning of that discussion. We've definitely heard that. Okay. So, I think that means we're done in this general area. I mean, if you add up all the upgrades we made, or purchased at least, we got a whole lot of them. Some that we may not have even had at all previously, and other ones that we just got one or maybe even two different improvements to them. So, very nice in that sense. I think at this stage, we're still looking to purchase stuff. I don't think there's any other shops elsewhere. So, we may just be looking to head back now up to the Normandy.
One moment, please. Now arriving at docking bay D24.
Okay, Garrus, of course, was not in that other area that we were just talking about because he's right here. Still don't really want to chat with him right now because that is an amazing conversation that I would like to save a little bit later, make it a little more of an apt conclusion.
The Alliance is posting us to an Ezo mining facility on Zani.
I think this is the start of this conversation as well, and we've heard the conclusion of that conversation as well, and we've talked about it before, so we will carry on. Okay. So let's head on back to the Normandy. Any updates? New trainer? Doesn't seem like it. Any emails? Doesn't seem like it. Okay. So I think in that case, we're ready to get our hands dirty again here and go on what could be a pretty big mission because at this stage we have Rannoch, Admiral Chorus, and we have Priority Rannoch. And so I think it's probably time to try to rescue Admiral Chorus, because remember, the Quarian ship carrying Admiral Chorus crash-landed on Rannoch, leaving the civilian fleet without a leader. Land on Rannoch and rescue Admiral Chorus. He was the person in Mass Effect 2, one of the admirals, at Tally's loyalty mission at her trial. He was the one that was sort of the Geth sympathizer, the one that seemed to try to, at times, seemed like he liked Geth more than he liked the Quarians, but was perhaps the only person who, among the admirals at least, who was saying that maybe peace between the Quarian and the Geth might have been an option, or at least didn't really want to fight the Geth. Of course, we know how that played out, because here we are, and the Quarian and the Geth are very much at war with one another right now, so I think we would like to rescue him, right about now, and on Rannoch is, of course, the place where we did one of the other missions that was leading up to Priority Rannoch. However, that one was when we were checking out the Geth fighter squadrons, where we entered the Geth consensus. So we didn't actually spend much time on Rannoch itself, and that's a shame. So let's change that. Now let's actually land on Rannoch in full, because of course this is the place where really it is the genesis of the Geth and Quarian, the Morning War is what it's called. And because when the Quarians made the Geth, of course they got a little concerned when the Geth became a little bit smarter than they had expected, and suddenly they thought that they may not be able to coexist, and so the fight ensued, and after which the Quarians had to flee Rannoch, and they didn't have that was their homeworld, so they didn't have a planet to live on anymore, and so they were stuck in their ships exploring the rest of the galaxy in what became, of course, the Migrant Fleet, which we have now been to on 1 or 2 occasions, and that's been the case for, I think, several hundred, at least 100 years at this point, and that's why, since they've lived almost their entire lives on spaceships and not on actual planets with atmospheres and what have you, their immune systems have grown incredibly weak, and that's why they all need to wear their suits, so that they don't catch an infection of some variety, and with their weakened immune systems, that could be the death of them. So, really just a fundamental piece of Quarian culture, and fundamental piece of the Mass Effect world in which we find ourselves here in the Milky Way. So, for us to finally set foot on Rannoch, the place where for at least 100 years the Quarians have been trying any way they possibly could to make that happen, that's saying something. So we have a couple of options here. We can destroy the Reaper base, or we can try to go for the Quarian escape pod and save the Admiral. Let's try to save the Admiral first. So that is, of course, much like the fighter squadrons. It's sort of like the subplots. It is kind of a main quest mission, because technically you can't attack the Reaper base until you've done at least one of those 2 things. But without going too far into spoiler territory, let me just say I highly, highly encourage you to do both the fighter squadrons and the Quarian escape pod mission before you do the Reaper base. I won't go into any further detail to avoid spoilers, but let's try to rescue the Admiral. Okay, so who are we going to take with us? I'm actually a little bit surprised to see it doesn't seem as though Tali is required for this mission, but I mean, we're going on Rannoch. Surely we ought to bring Tali, right? Our Quarian squad member? Surely that is the answer. We have her on power damage right now for her outfit. I do wonder if perhaps recharge speed may actually be preferable, because things like the sabotage to hack, well, Geth, and the defense drone, I think that's the one that stays up indefinitely. But the combat drone has a pretty quick recharge time. Sabotage less so, energy drain less so. Those are all very powerful abilities that we'd like her to be using all the time. So the 25% damage is nice, yes, but I think with Tali, it may be more meaningful to be using those 24/7. So yeah, let's take her as one person, and we'll use that outfit. And in the other case, there is, well, he's perhaps not the best for gameplay-wise, matching up against what we expect to be, I would assume, on Rannoch, a whole bunch of Geth. Means mostly shields and synthetics, but James does have a lot of, or at least one, very specific piece of dialogue that is worth seeing if you have not done so yet. So, gonna make things a little more difficult for us if he is going to be one of our squad mates. So if you're on a higher difficulty then, and you're concerned about completing the mission, then perhaps you go a different route, but we're gonna give it a shot here with James. He is, of course, primarily an anti-armor specialist, not an anti-shield specialist, which is why he's not the best fit. But we do have Tali, for shields and synthetics, so hopefully that will still suffice. Okay, and in terms of weapons, we certainly have some new mods to look at. We also picked up, was it new pistol altogether? Is it the arc pistol it's referring to? That was a recent addition. No, it's the card effects. Oh, right. From Ere. Yes, I do remember when we picked this up. I do remember. It's not what I'd like to use here, but since I don't think we've checked it out, we were talking about it a bit. It's a highly accurate and lethal pistol. The card effects is a favored sidearm of mercenary leaders and Eclipse mercenary tech specialists. An expensive but powerful weapon, its marketing materials feature a charging Krogan with the slogan, "Don't you wish a Carnifex was at your side?" So it is the weapon that we got in Mass Effect 2 from Morden, and in many cases is one of, if not the best, pistols in Mass Effect 2, so we used it a whole lot during our playthrough for that. In Mass Effect 3, when there are more options for your pistol, it's still a solid all-round pistol. Doesn't have much in the way of capacity. It's a 6-shooter, so it's kind of a space cowboy weapon, but it hits pretty hard for a pistol, and it does have a solid headshot multiplier. So in particular, if you are accurate and you're trying to go for the headshots, then this can be a solid choice for you. But probably something that's going to get replaced by, say, an arc pistol once you get it, because this is in some ways kind of just like a better Carnifex in almost every way. It's slower to fire would be the downside, at least if you're charging it, it's slower. And if you're not charging it, then I don't think it deals as much damage, so still, arc pistol probably the direction that you would prefer to go. But anyways, let's stick with what our plan was, where did you go, Acolytes? There you are. And remember, Acolyte, of course, 500% damage multiplier against shields is really good if we're expecting to run into more Geth. And then here, on the shotgun side of things, I imagine this is is it the Crusader that we purchased? Oh no, it's probably the shotgun, the Venom shotgun that we just purchased from our recent Citadel excursion. The Venom shotgun was developed by the Solarian Special Task Group to meet the unpredictable needs of those stationed in hostile areas. The double barrel fires ammunition that detonates on impact, so again, it shoots a grenade, basically, which is pretty sweet. A little bit slow to fire, especially, or at least you have the option of either charging it or not charging it. If you just fire it straight away without charging, it shoots pretty fast, but there's still a little bit of an arc to the projectile, so I don't think it's going to hit immediately. Still a little bit of a delay there. If you do charge it up, then it is slow, but you can proactively charge it up, run around, and then blast people in the face as soon as they come up on you. So while a third barrel below can be charged to fire a round of micro grenades. Given the covert nature of most SCG assignments, they chose to use a weapon that throws grenades because that is super subtle. The Venom was designed to force an exit strategy and was issued to teams whose primary objective was to extract compromised undercover operatives. I suppose if you're already compromised, then it's not a bad idea. Shotgun is now issued to frontline soldiers in the war against the Reapers. So yeah, as I said, damage-wise, it's pretty good. It's quite good, especially if you charge it up all the way. It does have a really slow rate of fire if you are charging it up all the way, but the combination of the damage and the stagger is really what makes it so useful. And the range is somewhat limited because it does kind of arc the trajectory of this grenade that it's chucking out, so it's by no means going to have the range of the Crusader, which was the thing that we were checking out and purchasing a while back. So we're going to stick with what we have here, but we were wondering, with the Hurricane, do we stick with the recoil system? Probably. The bigger question was, bigger question was, do you go high caliber barrel for pure damage, or do you go heatsink, which means you're using less ammo, so you can fire it for a longer period of time before it does use up all its ammo, because that is one of the problems with the Hurricane, is it has such a ridiculously fast fire rate that it blows through ammo like crazy. So if this is your primary weapon, then you're probably going to want to do this combo right here, heatsink plus recoil system. If you're just using it as a backup weapon, then this might not be as necessary, in which case maybe we do stick with either the high caliber barrel or the high velocity barrel for some armor piercing. I don't really think we're going to be using this against armored enemies all that often. But having at least some form of armor piercing to go through cover is, on one of your weapons, is really nice. I mean, having this be level 1 is not going to be able to pierce through much other than just super light cover, but maybe we actually prefer this. And then for teammates. So for James, we have Typhoon, we have Crusader. That seems pretty reasonable. Typhoon, of course, we know is huge damage. Although, we picked up any different mods we'd like to use instead of this? Nope, I think this is the way to do it. Huge damage there. And it does have, I believe it's a 50% damage multiplier against shield, so not a huge multiplier, but a multiplier for shield, so should work reasonably well against Geth for that reason. The question I'm having now is, do we prefer the Crusader for a long-range shotgun, or do we actually prefer going for the thing that we just picked up, the Venom, which would give us better short-range cover, blasting enemies that are right on top of us? You could make a case for this. Maybe we give this a shot, because the Crusader is perhaps a little bit redundant with the Typhoon. Typhoon is not the most accurate thing in the world, but they're both theoretically capable of firing at range, so maybe this is James' close-range, specialized scenario weapon. Let's make sure that we throw on the damage for this, because it, similar to the Scorpion, again, it is basically a shotgun version of the Scorpion. That means it shoots a projectile, so it cannot pierce, and it cannot get headshot damage. So no use putting on the extra piercing mods here. For that reason, the second mod is a little bit tricky. You could potentially justify just going with the thermal clip. The weight doesn't matter for him. I don't even know if we have ultralight. We don't. Don't know to what extent the smart choke is really necessary on the Venom specifically, because the difficulty with aiming it is just that it bounces. The projectiles bounce if you shoot them on the ground, which it doesn't get easier to aim when it doesn't get much easier to aim when you improve the accuracy. It just takes a lot of anticipation. So I think we do just go with the clip. One thing to bear in mind is that usually when it comes to weapons that can charge up, squad mates tend not to do that. They'll just fire it without charging it, which does make the Venom weaker. So you could make the more I think about it, a pretty strong case that maybe Venom is not the best for squad mates. That might have been why we did not immediately purchase it when we first saw it at the Citadel. But we'll give it a shot here. Even if maybe that does mean that the Crusader would still be better in this situation. Talk about close range weapon. Yeah, actually, talking just pure damage at close range. Claymore is, I believe, the highest single shot damage shotgun on second thought. Given the shortcomings that we were just saying with squad mates not usually charging up weapons when they have weapons that can be charged, feel like we might actually want to give James the Claymore instead. And in this case, we definitely do want Smart Choke, because this thing has a terrible accuracy. Smart Choke is basically required, and then you either go the high caliber barrel for the normal damage, or you go for the piercing. I don't remember if it has any built-in piercing. It may not, in which case the Shredder ammo probably be nice, or rather the Shredder mod would probably be nice. What do we put on Tally's? Yeah, that is the combo we put on Tally. That makes sense. Scorpion for her also makes sense. Yeah, I think this is what we're looking for then. Then in terms of our skills here, we do have enough points to fully upgrade Defense Matrix. Just as a reminder, that means reduce the power penalty, power recharge speed penalty of Defense Matrix, because remember, although it does give us all the defenses, a passive 20% damage reduction at this stage, it does slow power recharge speed by 60%, which we do have really fast recharge time, so it's not a huge deal, but it would be nice to be back to doing our instantaneous power combos. We have... No, it's over here in Biotic Mastery. We have this increase 40%, or improve our recharge speed by 40% for 30 seconds after detonating biotic combos. We're doing that a lot. I don't know, however, I don't remember if this cancels out the downside from the defense matrix, or if defense matrix just permanently makes it so that we are, at the moment, I believe, either at 200%, which is the maximum recharge speed, or 192, so extremely close to it. You know, because we're already there, does that mean that combo mastery just realistically is not able to exceed that, even with defense matrix on, in which case this is not going to make a difference? Or is it that, well, actually, you know, if that's not the case, then that means we still have the 60% our recharge speed reduction. So that would be bad. However, it would mean that cutting that penalty in half would be relevant. We'd be using our powers more frequently. However, if this combo mastery is capable of counteracting the penalty from defense matrix, then that gets rid of, how much was it? 40% of that 60% penalty. So that means we're only at a 20% penalty, which is pretty minor. And this would get us all the way back up to 200% and then some, which maybe is overkill. Maybe we'd prefer to have 30% damage protection, which is pretty high number. Pretty high number. It would increase the effectiveness by 50% relative to what we currently have. So that's nothing to snuff at. I think we were saying we wanted to... Is this something we were saying we wanted to wait a little bit longer before we decided? That might have been over here for durability versus shield bonus. That's what we delayed on a little bit. Alternatively, I mean, like, pull, we're not going to upgrade that. Shockwave, we could potentially put another point or two into this. Cluster Grenade, we could fully upgrade with force and damage or increasing the shrapnel count for just pure damage. Or actually, there's straightforward damage, but more shrapnel means that the grenade splits into more sub-grenades, more cluster grenades, and so equates to more damage, so this one's definitely preferable, but we just haven't used these very often either. I'm a little hesitant. There. Maybe a more straightforward answer for Tally and for James, because for them, I mean, Sabotage. Sabotage, when we know, or at least highly expect that we're going against Geth, is very, very tempting. Because, well, it can be very effective, as I believe we've already seen a bit. So for her, thinking we might want to at least put a few more points into this. We can increase the impact radius. Remember, it theoretically can hack multiple enemies simultaneously. They do need to be pretty close for that to happen, but it may still not be a bad thing. Duration. Increasing it from 12 to 18 seconds, that is a long, long time. That's pretty sweet. I think we go for that. Drops are down to 4, which means we could put one more point into Quarian Machinist over here, and for that we can either improve her power recharge speed or give her additional health and shields. And for that, I mean, I think we might want to go recharge speed. Because, let's just take a quick look at what our cooldowns are at this stage. Energy drain is at 7.62 seconds. It's not terrible. Sabotage is 14.29 seconds. That's a long time. Combat drone, 4.76. That's very fast. But, that sabotage is kind of painful. Yes, the duration of the sabotage is longer than the recharge time. So it means that, theoretically speaking, you hack one, the enemy is going to stay hacked, and you can, as soon as it gets unhacked, reset it with this. But remember, the cooldown on sabotage means we can hack one enemy, yes, but then Tally's just sitting there twiddling her thumbs for the next 14.29 seconds. Can't use any other abilities like energy drain, which we'd probably like to be using right about then. So for that reason, so that she can more easily chain multiple things after the sabotage goes off. I think we probably do want the recharge speed here. Let's see, what does that equate to now? This was 7 something, it's now 6.4. That's pretty quick. For a squad mate, at least, that's pretty decent. And this was, what, 14 and is now down to 12 seconds? Still a long time, but not as long of a time, fortunately, for her. And for James. Arms Master. Were we thinking about going all the way up to rank 6 for this one? Because, yeah, I think the last one here, squad bonus for health and shield 20%, that one's pretty heavily bugged. Probably don't want to do that. Health and shield bonuses for him, and giving him more melee damage, just making him tankier. It's an option. Not sure how necessary it is at this stage. He has 8 points. We can do a fair bit here. We could put a few more points to frag grenade. Let's see what the next level on that is. Damage, radius. It's a lot of damage. As much is true. More carnage. Also, for damage, I mean, having a 16-second recharge time on carnage is pretty painful. Because this is an ability, I mean, it's not like it's crazy powerful, so much so that you use it once and everything is dead, so you don't need to use it again for a very long time, and therefore you can wait out the recharge speed. Now, this is something that, you know, you'd like to be spamming if you're relying on it. But, I mean, James, of course, is a soldier primarily, first and foremost, which means he's mostly getting his damage from weapons, less so from abilities. So maybe we dial it back a bit on the carnage. I mean, we could go... What? We could get 1 point in frag grenade and 1 point in arms or rather 1 point in carnage. Maybe we do a little bit of both in that case. So we can't do 2 in frag grenade. We won't quite have enough for that. So in this case, yeah, it's the damage or it's the radius. What do we prefer there? Single target or multiple? I mean, 6.5 meters is pretty huge already. 8.45 is ridiculous. I'm not sure that that is all that necessary. That just feels like overkill. I feel like getting the extra damage, though, might be the difference sometimes between almost killing an enemy and actually killing an enemy. So I think we go for that. Carnage. In this case, I mean, we're just looking at damage. Unless we want to deliberately save these points so we can upgrade the frag grenade next time we level up, perhaps. I think we'll take the carnage point here. I think we'll still go for it. Then we delayed a little bit. We're not sure what we wanted to do with Shepard. Did we want the defense matrix? Maybe we just go for the cluster grenade here. I know we don't use them that often, but being able to actually throw more clusters or have the grenades break into additional clusters means, because this damage and force number that you see here is per little shrapnel piece, getting additional shrapnel pieces on the grenades is a pretty big deal. So I do like that a lot. Technically, we do have enough points to get 1 more into Shockwave, but we use it so infrequently that I don't think getting 0.21 seconds faster of recharge time is all that big of a deal in this case. So we'll just save this up and be closer to upgrading defense matrix further. And I mean, we're getting to the point where this is the last big thing we want to upgrade. We've said previously that pull we don't really need many points in at all. This is basically just to get rid of guardian shields. Shockwave we don't use all that often either, so we're getting close to the point where we have everything we want to have on Shepard, which is pretty sweet. But without further ado, let's get going.